Hi, my name is Doug Fields, and I'm super excited and thankful that you'd spend some time in learning to be a more effective youth worker. I was recently at a high school reunion, and a friend of mine was recalling about how awkward he was when he was around girls when he was a teenager. There was this girl that he had liked for a long time, and he just couldn't get up the courage to talk to her. And then finally one day, he decided, I'm going for it. So he stumbled up to her and he mumbled something about, would you ever want to go out with me? And then to his complete surprise, she said yes. And that's when it hit him. He hadn't thought through what to say next if she had said yes. So he just paused and kind of got awkward, and then he said, okay, good. And he walked away. Now, it was definitely an awkward moment and very funny as we were recalling that. And I'm making the assumption that you're a lot more socially adjusted than my friend was. But I've also been a youth worker long enough to know that sometimes conversations with teenagers get just downright awkward. I mean, some teenagers are willing to talk without much of your prompting, and yet some require a lot of skill just to get them to say something deeper than fine. I mean, there have been times when my attempt at conversation had been met with complete silence. And I could tell that the teenager didn't want to talk to an adult. And I was like my buddy in high school, and I would say, okay, talk to you later. And then I'd walk away. Basically, what I'm saying is I've definitely had my share of awkward conversations as a youth worker. And after enduring thousands of interactions in the 30-plus years I've worked with teenagers, I've come to the conclusion that teenagers do want to talk. They even want to talk to adults. And these conversations are needed, and they can become a significant part of the discipleship process. And please hear that. Teenagers do want to talk to you. And there's more good news. Conversations with teenagers is a skill you can actually learn. Now, I realize that some of you don't need any help. You're amazing. You're naturally gifted at engaging teenagers in conversations. Great. But most youth workers, we need a little help, we need a little guidance, and we could use a lot of practice. Now, what I want to do in our short amount of time together is expose you to 3 different types of conversations that I think you and I as youth workers, we need to master. Ideally, what I'd love to do is expose you to these 3 types of conversations, and then you spend time with other leaders that are part of your team, and together you come up with specific ways that you can pull these conversations off in your setting. That would be very beneficial for your team. Now, for my part, I'm going to paint the big picture of the 3 types of conversations that are very important for you to think about every time you're with teenagers. The first type of conversation that leaders need to master is what I simply call superficial dialogue. This is learning to ask questions that break the ice with a teenager so he or she can begin to engage in conversation. These are the common type questions like, what school do you go to? And what did you like about tonight's program? And how did you wind up coming here? How's your week going? What's been a highlight? It doesn't take the IQ of a rocket scientist to formulate these common icebreaker questions, but it does take initiative, interest, and a couple good questions that are ready to go. See, the goal is to engage teenagers in conversation. Now, you might be asking, why? Well, because conversations communicate that you care. You want to know about their life. And see, I want teenagers to feel like that when they come to church, when they come to youth group, that these people who appear to be leaders, that they really care. They're genuinely interested in me as a teenager, and I feel accepted here. That's what I want them to feel. And again, some of you don't need any help with this. And you're a pro. And if so, let me give you a couple thoughts. First, don't assume everybody is naturally good at this. There are some adults who are just beginning this whole youth ministry thing, and conversations with teenagers are not natural to them. And if that's the case, take them with you. Introduce them to some teenagers. Allow them to watch you interact and learn from you. And second, this is real important, don't become so good at superficial conversation that you stay there. See, I know too many youth workers who are excellent at making small talk, and yet they're fearful to go deeper than surface with teenagers. A good use of superficial conversation can actually help lead to the second type of conversation that I want you to master. And that's what I'd simply refer to as serious conversations. To enter into serious conversations requires that I, as an adult, need to pay very careful attention to the superficial conversations and then look for opportunities to ask a follow-up question that might actually turn the conversation and take it to a deeper place. For example, if a teenager answers one of my superficial questions and drops the line like, "Yeah, it's been kind of a tough week," I don't want to follow that comment up and say, "So what sports do you play? Or do you have any brothers and sisters?" No, instead I might want to say, "Can I ask you what made it a tough week?" See, a question like that can quickly turn a conversation from superficial to serious. And serious conversations tend to reveal a person's heart, and they provide an opportunity for us to minister to them more effectively. Serious conversations open doors to great relational intimacy, accountability, and spiritual growth. Now, some other examples of this type of follow-up question might be like this. Is it too much for me to ask why that hurts so much? Or I might say something like, "Wow, that was really personal. Thanks for sharing that. You know, I noticed your eyes changed a little while we were talking. There seems to be something big happening right now. Do you feel safe enough to tell me what's going on?" Or anytime I hear a fear-based comment, I might say something like this. "Boy, I know there's a lot that scares me. And I know everyone is scared of something. Does that situation scare you?" The longer I'm involved in youth ministry, the more convinced I am that teenagers want to talk. They want to talk about real issues in their lives. There's some serious stuff happening in the hearts of today's teens, and you and I have the incredible privilege to listen as they share their pain. They just want to make sure that it's safe and they're actually talking to someone who cares. I know it can be kind of risky, and you may have some teens put a stop to the communication, but I promise you it's worth the risk. Serious conversations can be both healing and life-changing. And I love getting there with teenagers to have serious conversations. And don't get me wrong, I don't just walk up to teenagers and say, "Hi, my name is Doug. Tell me about the deepest hurt in your life." No. Good superficial conversations, followed by strong listening skills, can set up serious conversations that teenagers actually want to have. Now, the third type of conversation that I really want youth workers to master is what we might call spiritual conversations. This is where you help guide the conversation to Jesus. Bottom line, Jesus is the one who changes and transforms the lives, right? It's not me, it's not you. You don't change lives. Jesus does. So let's point teenagers to Jesus. I've had so many youth workers say to me, "I don't really know how to bring up the whole Jesus thing," or "I'm not sure when to talk about God." I get it. It can be scary at times. But let's realize that most teenagers that you're engaging with, they know you're connected to Jesus in some way. By you talking about Jesus, it's not like they're going to say, "What? I can't believe it. I'm so offended. I can't believe he's actually bringing his name up." Actually, I think teenagers are surprised when we don't move the conversation to Jesus. And I'm not suggesting that every conversation turn into a sermon, not at all. I think there's a big difference between being preached at and talked with. I just want teenagers to learn to go to Jesus, to consider Jesus, to talk to Jesus, to learn from Jesus, to question Jesus, to walk with Jesus. Jesus changes lives. So let's send teenagers to Jesus. When you have the opportunity to interact with teenagers, whether it be superficial, serious, or a spiritual conversation, you are given a sacred privilege and responsibility to love that teenager with the love of Jesus. So be sure you're drawing near to Jesus yourself so that you have His eyes and His ears and His sensitivity to ask the right question. Now, I've done the easy part, helping you identify the 3 different types of conversations. Now, you've got to do the difficult part and figure out how to do that in your own setting. All 3 of these types of conversations are important, and you can become skilled at each one. And God will use your willingness to help teenagers grow. So thanks for your sacrifice of time to really care for teenagers and to point them to Jesus. Enjoy your conversations.